The Feast of Candlemas fulfills three distinct functions. It recalls the presentation of Jesus in the temple. It's the occasion for the annual blessing of church candles. And based on a pre-Christian festival, it approximately marks the halfway point between the shortest day of the year and the current spring. With respect to the presentation of the temple, the ordinance that the first male child should be offered to God occurs as early as Exodus 22, and it's recalled vividly in the early life of Samuel. No doubt in most cases the offering was merely symbolic, but in line with his overall narrative, Luke gives space to the story because it strengthens the link between Jesus and the temple, which starts with the opening verses of his gospel as Zechariah burns incense at the altar and ends with St. Paul's Pentecostal purification just before his arrest and journey to Rome at the end of Acts. It's difficult for us to understand both the vital role of male succession in the ancient world, but the dynastic imperative has run down the ages until the shocking story of our church's founder, King Henry VIII. And even now, distant as we are from the Victorian obsession with male heritage, there is still a soft spot in many families for the first son. And in many parts of the world, sons are still valued much more highly than daughters. But what counts is not the anthropology, but the notion that whatever we have, we offer the best of it back to God. As for the importance of the temple, we only have to think of the massive political tension caused at present by the overlapping of the Jewish Wailing Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. We as Christians are not so obsessed by place, but we generally love our places of worship, are fussy about how they are appointed, and are deeply suspicious of change, which underlines the importance in religious traditions of continuity. Another aspect of continuity is the way that Christians appropriated pagan festivals for their own purposes. Christmas, after all, was superimposed on the midwinter pagan festival, as is Candlemas, another superimposition, and our Easter is superimposed on the Jewish Passover. Taken together, you could say that Candlemas represents the Judeo-Christian love of continuity, which goes against our contemporary culture of novelty. As for the candles, they were, of course, an absolute necessity, particularly in northern countries and places where it was difficult to get hold of oil for lamps. And it's natural that these should be blessed for use in churches. But at the Reformation, they became the subject, like priestly vestments, of bitter controversy. And now they are something of an ornament, much in the fashion of guardian angels, a bit cute and a bit Catholic, but also very comforting. When we visit a great cathedral, we might light a candle and say a prayer in an act which echoes medieval Christianity, where people thought they could pray or even pay for the deceased loved ones to arrive in heaven. What I take from this tangle of traditional strands are three simple lessons. First, we cannot handle novelty very easily unless we're able in some way to see it through the prism of the previous. But secondly, we are apt to take tradition as read without knowing enough about why things were and not taking enough trouble to ask if they should be that way now. And thirdly, it isn't tradition that we should fight for, but rather the underlying purposes which it serves. Judaism survived the loss of its temple. We have survived the loss of primogeniture. And our relationship with God in the communion of saints has survived the medieval practice of praying for saints to be liberated from purgatory and sent up to heaven. Needless to say, traditions are of different weight and are therefore varying in their ability to enable or to stifle. I think, for example, that although we know from pure theology that our prayers for the deceased make no difference to their ultimate relationship with God, I still think that there are very good pastoral reasons why people should pray for the dead if they want to. A more nuanced example would be the use of the Book of Common Prayer, which possesses some of the most beautiful English ever written, but which almost totally focuses on 16th century theological concerns, the mechanics of salvation and the doctrines of justification, predestination and sin, and which maintains social hierarchy and the inferiority of women, and has just about nothing to say on the issues of social justice, the church as the people of God, and the complexities of contemporary life and ethics. And an even more difficult third case is the traditional attitudes to all kinds of socio-economic, ethical and cultural issues which stop us as a church from facing outwards with confidence into the 21st century. Tradition, after all, is there to inform and not to dictate. Having said all of which, let me end on a very strictly traditional note, which we might take forward into later this year and next. Our ancestors got it right when they gave Christmas 40 days as they gave to Lent. Life being as it is, and always has been, we need every day of Christmas that we can get. So in 3 stages, try to observe Advent in Advent, and consequently observe an intense Christmas between the coming of the Christ child and the coming of the Magi. And then even with the tree down, keep up the feasting and smiling, the hospitality and the thanksgiving until Candlemas. Amen.